Hello, shares. It's CreepEvee. We're back in Pauper this week. We've been away from it for a little while, but I'm happy to be back. I've got a couple of decks that I want to try out. The first one being the Black-Red Reanimator deck that we have here. Reanimator decks are decks that I absolutely love to play. I've played them in just about every format that I can conceivably play them in, uh, which is quite a lot, but there's all sorts of fun things you can do with it. So it's a theme that I like a lot, so I'm happy to get a chance to play it. I've wanted to play this deck for a while, but there's so many different builds that I just couldn't really decide. You can definitely play this, just straight up Ulamog's Crusher and Gurmag Angler. You can play like that. You can throw in some dredge cards. You can do more like this one, which is more discard heavy. You can play it Jund. All sorts of different options. Personally, I kind of like including some of the dredge cards. The Stinkweed Imp is the biggest one that you would use, but it can be a little tricky. I just like it because it's pretty much like a guaranteed hit, whereas something like a Faithless Looting can get countered. But honestly, if your opponent is burning counters on a Faithless Looting, you're doing okay. Because they're if you don't give them something to counter, then they're going to counter your Exhume, which is obviously far more important than them countering the Faithless Looting. So if they want to burn a counter on Faithless Looting, that's fine with me. But this build I found, and I'll link the list in the description. I only changed one thing, which is I put in Pyroblasts over Red Elemental Blast just because I have Pyroblasts and I don't have Red Elemental Blasts. Saved me the trouble of getting them, so that's the only difference. But we have the inclusion of 4 more Eldrazi, and messing around with it, I actually do like these because blue-black is becoming more prominent in Pauper. It's already pretty damn prominent, but it's definitely a problem, and so things like Doomblade and all these different removal spells, forcing you to sack cards with Chainer's Edict, it's really becoming a serious problem for creature-based decks, or few creature-based decks. If you've got, crap ton of tokens, then you're fine, but you it's something that you've got to plan for, and having one, having just the Ulamog's Crusher coming out and it being a 4 of does make it a little bit of a challenge to keep it on board consistently. So adding these in is actually a pretty good pick. I didn't even realize that Hand of Emrakul had Annihilator 1 until I saw this list. And then you have Eldrazi Devastator, which is just trample, and an 8/9, which is massive. So how do we really make these guys utilize their power even more? The biggest thing is Ulamog's Crusher has Annihilator 2, which in this format, if you can get this going fast enough, and this deck is advertised as getting Ulamog's Crusher out turn 1, which you definitely can. But you got to draw. You got to draw pretty good. But the biggest thing is getting it out early and using Dragon's Breath to give it haste. Why there is what appears to be a boar in the artwork for Dragon Breath, that eludes me. But what it is it's an aura for 2. It says enchanted creature has haste. And for a red, you can pump that creature up by 1/0. But the thing that we're worried about is that when it's in the discard, if something hits the board that is a converted mana cost 6 or greater, you can equip it to it from the graveyard. So, if we get our Ulamog's Crusher out on turn 1, and we get Dragon's Breath in our grave as well, it now has haste. And so on our turn 1, we are swinging for Annihilator 2 and an 8/8. It's a pretty fun way to play Magic if you really like aggressive decks. So this is definitely a fun one to play, and you want to keep in mind that Dragon's Breath is also that ability will apply to Gurmag Angler, which we're playing 2 of here. Besides that, we're playing Dark Ritual to enable a first turn Ulamog's Crusher. Putrid Imp as a secondary discard outlet, pretty efficient discard outlet as well. Then we have Exhume, which is obviously our key win con. Can only have 4 of these things. The only other reanimation spell in Pauper is Unearth, and it only applies to, I believe, converted mana cost 3 or less. It's not going to help us out with Ulamog's Crusher. Because Exhume is so important, we have 4 copies of Shred Memory because they transmute for an Exhume. The aforementioned Gurmag Angler as another creature that we can get out without having to worry about Exhume. The Delve effect, given the amount of discard that is involved in this deck, definitely relevant. And then as far as our discard outlets, we have 4 copies of Faithless Looting, 3 copies of Cathartic Reunion, and 4 copies of Tormenting Voice. So plenty of discard outlets, and of course the 4 copies of Dragon Breath to ditch it for the grave. So that's it. It's pretty straightforward. Well, I guess we'll go over the sideboard. 4 copies of Apostle's Blessing because we need to protect our creatures. 4 copies of Duress so that we can get rid of nasty cards in our opponent's hand, such as counter magic to make sure that our Duress goes through so we can bring this in against blue. Alternatively, if our opponent is playing black, we might even bring this in to get rid of a Chainer's Edict. So, very nice card that has some flexibility against different matchups that are going to create problems for us. 1 copy of Doomblade so that we can do a little bit of damage to our opponent as well, as far as their creatures. The 3 Power Blasts that I mentioned earlier, and then 3 copies of Smelt for a quick 1-drop artifact removal. But that is the deck. I really like it. There's a lot of different ways to build this, so don't feel like you're confined to this list. But if you want to see the if you want to see how we can get Ulamog's Crusher out and running on turn 1, hopefully I'm going to be able to show that to you guys today. But this will give you an idea at least where you want to start with your Reanimator deck. But I'm sure you guys want to see it in action, so let's head over to it. Okay, looking at our starting hand, it would be absolutely fantastic if we had a mountain in our hands. That is unfortunate, because this is absolutely fantastic. We got first turn Faithless Looting with an Exhume and an Ulamog's Crusher in our hand, but without red mana we're not going anywhere. This hand is not super duper great, but we do have our lands, we do have a Tormenting Voice. We definitely don't need that land. Yeah, I mean, we've got the Tormenting Voice. I don't like the mulligan too much with this deck. It's very hard to come back from anything if you do. So red-white, so I don't think we're going to have to worry about counter magic. Let's start with a mountain and then pass. So now we look, Tormenting Voice, we're going to discard a card, which will probably be the Crusher. So this might be, I don't know, a Soul's Attendant. That's interesting. Alright, we'll drop a Swamp and go Tormenting Voice, discarding this Ulamog's Crusher. Get 2 cards, and that's not bad actually. That is not bad. Because tap black Dark Ritual, use that to cast Shred Memory, we'll transmute Shred Memory, get the Exhume, and then have 2 mana open to cast the Exhume. But I'd like to get rid of, I wish I could get Dragon's Breath in my discard. 2 or less attacks, deals 1 damage to target planeswalker, the player or planeswalker that creature is attacking. So death by inches, I suppose. Cathartic Reunion. I think it's better for us to go with the Cathartic Reunion, because right now we can cast a guaranteed Exhume, but we'll get Crusher and then we'll have to wait a turn. Whereas if we cast it next turn, we'll have Dragon's Breath in Grave, and then it'll have haste. So we're not actually minusing there. I much rather would have discarded these guys. So what we'll do is... Oh, we could actually cast Exhume this turn. Because what we'll do... 2 Dark Rituals. Transmute the Shred Memory for an Exhume. Alright. You guys see what I'm going for here? Got ourselves an Ulamog's Crusher out. So we'll let his trigger resolve, I guess. And then, so this is like I said, this teachable moment here. So Dragon's Breath works. It is a it's an optional ability. So even though there's 2, that doesn't mean that we have to have both of them go on to Ulamog's Crusher, because obviously that would be a waste. And our opponent scoops it up, seeing that that is a tough thing to fight against. Our hand was looking kind of rough after that, though. So I'm guessing they didn't have an answer to it. Going up against white, that means that we're going to be looking out for things like... what would... Journey to Nowhere would probably be the biggest thing that we've got to worry about. I want to... What do I want to do? I want to bring in the Apostles' Blessings, but I'm not sure where to bring them in from. I think let's just try it. Apostles' Blessing will only get us so far. Now this hand is fantastic. Yes, we will keep this. I just wish it was a Cathartic Reunion and not the Tormenting Voice, because then we could ditch 2 things. Because I'd like to ditch Crusher and Dragon Breath. So what we can do is go ahead and get the Exhume off of that Shred Memory. And now, Shred Memory does serve another purpose, if you're wondering. Pretty much it is there because it is a black transmute that gets you a converted mana cost 2. But it does have the ability to get things out of your opponent's grave. If you want to see its ability here. You exile up to 4 targets from a single graveyard. So Exhume does allow your opponent to get something out. They may be playing a deck that has something big that you don't want to deal with. So that may be relevant whenever you're playing, so keep that in mind. You might have 1 spare in your hand, and if you got the mana, you might want to cast it before you cast Exhume. A lot of people forget that Exhume lets your opponent get something out too. I wish that we had Electrickery in this sideboard. Pretty sure we should. Alright, so let's Tormenting Voices, discard the Crusher. Get a Putrid Imp. That actually does help us. Because I want to go next turn Putrid Imp, discard Dragon Breath, then cast Exhume. My opponent is getting to a point where they've got a few things that they can sacrifice for Annihilator without losing, you know, their entire board. He has now left me no blockers. Don't know whether that was a smart move on his part. So we're gonna drop that. Go Putrid Imp. Gets the double triggers there. That's fine. So we're going to activate Putrid Imp. Giving him flying, not really relevant, but you want to make sure you keep track of things like that. You never know, it might become relevant. He's going to gain 2, that's fine. And we will say yes to the Dragon Breath. So, Putrid Imp cannot attack despite the fact that he has flying. So my opponent has not scooped, which makes me think that they have something this time around, which would be a Journey to Nowhere. And if that is the case, then we might be in a tough spot. But then that leaves him at kind of a disadvantage to swing out the way he did and leave no blockers. If I was him, I would have left, you know, one blocker open if I had a Journey to Nowhere in hand. Looks like no Journey to Nowhere in hand. Or maybe. Oh, a Battle Screech, getting out a few flyers. So we got some blockers now, and chump drops for Annihilator. Shred Memory can go and get us a discard spell. Seems pretty wasteful to do that, but I think that's pretty much what has to happen. I mean, we don't have anything else to do with our turn. But my opponent realizes that he's going to have to get rid of a lot of stuff. We had Gurmag, Angler, and a Swamp coming up. Of course, our deck was going to be shuffled because we were searching with Shred Memory. Let's see if we can't get another game in. Okay, we're going first, and Sand is great, except it's slow due to our fetch lands. But I'm going to try it. Certainly not going to be the turn 1 hasty Ulamog, but we'll see. So I think we'll just go, let's get a red. That way if we draw Faithless Looting, we're still open. Starts off with a blue, starts off with a Ponder, so a very good turn for my opponent. I mean, he could have, you know, gotten something awful off the Ponder, but, you know, generally a pretty good start. So we did not draw what we needed to draw, which was a Faithless Looting. Not that we needed to draw it, but what would have been preferable. May end up like shred memory. Well, no, we're not that desperate to use shred memory to get a dragon breath quite yet. We gotta see how much of our stuff gets countered first. Sorry, that is my phone again that I'm trying to silence. But alas, we will not have this problem in the new apartment once I move. But right now my living situation is just how that is. Oh, that was just his combat. Alright. Yes, that is one of the arduous things about living in my home, but that will be fixed along with the move to the new apartment. Which will be very beneficial for my recording purposes. Alright, we got to a dragon's breath, which is nice. A dragon breath. What'll be nice is next turn we go mountain, getting our we'll play Tormenting Voice. That way Dragon Breath will be in our grave whenever we bring out our Crusher. My opponent is tapping his blue mana. I'm hoping he does not dig for an island. Okay, so we don't have counter magic open. Well, Pyroblast, but Pyroblast isn't going to help us. Well, stop us, I should say. So let's play Tormenting Voice. Discard the Dragon Breath. Mountain, cast Exhume. And we're going to get our Crusher. Annihilator 2 means, yep. So yeah, he's going to have to either give up 2 lands or a land and his creature, which is just going to set him so far back since we are going to be hitting for 8. He just really does not have a chance to do anything there. So I just want to focus on getting these 3 Pyroblasts in, and I think that'll be the main thing. But what do we go down on? I think we could go down, I kind of like Putrid Imp because it's technically a blocker for Delver once it's flipped. Let's go down a Devastator, and then go down, we'll go down 1 Imp. And then I don't know, maybe like a go down 1 Dragon Breath. I think 4 in this deck is a little high anyway, honestly. Okay. I like that we're opening with a Pyroblast. And I like that we're opening with a Dark Ritual. And we are going second. We have a Crusher in hand to start with. I want to try it. Mainly because I have Pyroblast in hand. Like, that's how important this is going to be. If he gets started, then we're not going to be doing great. And the Dark Ritual helps us get our speed back up, depending on how far back this sets us. My opponent apparently trying to decide what he wants to do about the mulligan. He goes to 6. Hopefully that's a good sign for us. This is actually an interesting matchup. Not really the matchup itself, but seeing Blue-Red Delver uh, brings me to a conversation that I thought about making a video on, but I don't really think that it's enough for a video. But I saw that Channel Fireball put out a statement, well, not really a statement, but a video talking about Valley Dasher. Okay. I really don't know what this guy's deck is going for now. But it was an article where they were saying that they felt that Blue-Red Delver was too dominant in Pauper and needed to be addressed, as in like a banning or some type of restriction looked at. And of course, I'm paraphrasing a lot here, but I found it interesting because although Blue-Red Delver is absolutely insane, it's not because it's Blue-Red Delver, it's because of Delver. So to limit it down to say Blue-Red Delver is kind of missing the point, I think. Wish we had a way to get this Dragon Breath out of my hand. But let's cast a Dark Ritual. Transmute this. And get our Exhume. Drop a Swamp for turn. Guess I'd like that one better. But yeah, I think it's like a maybe a missing the forest for the trees type thing. Not to say anything negative about them. I don't mean that at all. I think that they have some good content over there. But I just I don't know. It was intriguing to think about, at least. So bouncing Crusher back to my hand. Unsummon is legitimately the most irritating thing to play against in this deck. And I kind of wish that I would have just held back and waited with that Pyroblast before I did anything, because now I'm kind of in an awkward situation. We'll have our Evolving Wilds open so that we can deck then, because we are in full top deck mode now, and not good top deck mode. Another Valley Dasher. I don't remember seeing this card before. I know I must have. Alright, so we're getting burned by these Thermo Alchemists before he casts a draw spell, I'm guessing. Oh no, a bolt. Okay. Yeah, that means we're one away from death. Yeah, that is not a draw spell, that is a bolt. Okay, at least it looks like for now. Oh yeah, I forgot to crack that Evolving Wilds. But it'll be alright. Ditch these two. Get to a Faithless Looting. At which point we will discard things that do not make us win the game. So yeah, even if I had remembered to tap that Evolving Wilds, we were going nowhere with that. Dark Ritual would have helped, but we still needed to get an Exhume. That's the key thing. I really would like to have these Duresses, I'm almost wondering whether it's better to just go for the duresses. Take out at least one and go in a duress. Could even go down one Tormenting Voice and add a duress. Because that unsummon hurt us a lot. But I don't think that unsummon is enough of a reason for us to go bringing in Apostle's Blessings. But I love this hand. In many ways, it's not that great, but in other ways, it's fantastic. Start with a Faithless Looting, ditching our 2 Eldrazi, and pass. I was kind of hoping I'd see an untapped land, but I think we play, what, 4? Yeah, I think 4 fetch lands. Alright. Delver out already. Putrid Imp is on standby to block it. Kind of curious, because we didn't see a Kiln Fiend last game, which is what we would typically be concerned about seeing. That, or even like a Nivix Cyclops. You don't normally see the Thermo Alchemist in a Delver deck. I mean, obviously it has synergies, but just it normally doesn't quite fit. So very interesting. Another fetch land, wow. Let's Cathartic Reunion. Discarding you guys. Please do not counter this. Rune Snag, and this plays 2. Cannot pay 2. At least we can flashback Faithless Looting next turn. Take 3 off this aberration. Get a swamp. So now, do we Tormenting Voices? Or do we flashback Faithless Looting? Let's do the Tormenting Voices and discard this Evolving Wilds. I'm gonna cry if he counters this. No, I'm certainly not gonna be able to pay for it now. I don't think I've ever seen Rune Snag. Maybe I'm just completely ignorant of some of these cards, but... Oh my god, yeah, if Putrid Imp has Threshold, then he can't block. Wow. I would have taken him out if I'd remembered that. Huh. Really wish I could cast that Dark Ritual. Let's take the Faithless Looting. Which one actually does something for me? And the short answer is none of them. Discard these two, and then I'm going to Evolving Wilds to get a mountain. Cast the Think Twice for some draw power. We've got a top deck, something pretty solid here, and I think that has to be an Exhume. I don't really see a way that it's not, and that doesn't account for potential counter magic. A Dragon Breath is not going to do it. So, just going to have to let our poor little Putrid Imp attack and hope that he has no burn spells. I'm just going to lay down a guess that he probably does. I am holding priority because if push comes to shove, I'd kind of like to use that Putrid Imp to Dragon Breath. I'm just double check that I don't have a Faithless Looting. Yep, with no Faithless Looting, I am done. So we will show our opponent that we had the super powerful Dragon Breath, and we're going to have to concede this one. So this one did not go quite as well. Shows you that it is not 100%. There's our Exhumes. 2 back-to-back. Wow. So as we can see, it is not all cotton candy and rainbows. I think I am going to do more videos with this deck at some point. But I also have a very special deck that I want to try out that I will probably go ahead and record for right now. Do a little back-to-back marathon recording. But yeah, this deck is really fun to play when it works. It's frustrating when it doesn't, and you have to accept the fact that a lot of times it's just not going to. You can build it to be a little bit slower and more mid-range, and you're a lot better off with that. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing that you have to remember is that you have 4 copies of Exhume, and your opponent is going to counter them. Like, there's no way around that. If they have blue, that Exhume is going to get countered, you know, half the time. So you've just got to accept the fact that you're putting yourself in a very dangerous position in those matchups, and you have to make a side deck that looks at that. If you're playing Jund, you can add in Pulse of Marasa, and I'm pretty sure that gets it back. I think it does. But yeah, you need a form of recursion, and you're going to have to go to green to get that. So I do think that Jund is probably a better mid-range way to do it. But if you want to play the super aggressive, try to just cut your opponent off on turn 1, this is an excellent way to do it. The multiple Eldrazi's kind of gives you a late game plan, which is always good to have, but it can be an early game, obviously. But you need more than just the Ulamog's Crusher if you're going to try to play the long game. So I think that they're good options to put into a deck, no matter how you decide to build it. But that, once again, this is a shell that you can expand on and take in a lot of different directions. So take everything here with a grain of salt, and I would love to hear what you guys would do with this deck. You know, would you go the Jund route? Would you keep it like this? Would you take out the extra Eldrazi's and put in something else for them? Would you um, would you take out the Dragon Breath? I know some builds don't even use it. You know, would you include more ritual spells to try to accelerate your mana? Would you use dredge cards instead of something like Putrid Imp? I'd love to hear all of you guys' thoughts on it. That's just a few alternatives that I would think of off the top of my head. What did you guys do with this sideboard? Because I'm a little iffy on it. And as always, we do appreciate if you would give the video a like and let your friends know about us. It's just a little way to let us know that you care, and we do appreciate it. And if you want to subscribe, that way you'll be able to see all the videos that I post, as well as all the other fantastic people here at Magic Gathering Strat. You don't want to miss any of our videos, so make sure that you do that, and I will see you guys in the next episode.